Jamin AI. Jamin AI.
All right, get ready, because this deep dive, well, it's going somewhere pretty different. We're going to be talking about holy ignorance. And yeah, it's a strategy, a way to deal with those nagging negative thoughts. You know,
I hope they all have them.
the ones that just won't leave you alone. And the interesting thing is, where we're getting this idea from, The Exorcist's bestiary, yeah, you heard that right, a blog, about, you guessed it, spiritual warfare.
Now, hold on. Before you think we've gone full Ghostbusters here,
Right,
it's not quite like that.
right.
Trust me. This is where things get interesting. See, a bestiary, it's like this ancient book, full of monsters and creatures.
Mythical stuff.
Right. But here it's a little different. These beasts, they're more like those anxieties we all have, the doubts.
The inner critic that just won't stop talking.
Exactly. Those voices in your head that could just take over.
And it's not just any bestiary, right? This is from an exorcist. I mean, talk about someone who deals with intense spiritual battles every day.
This guy, Jamin Bradley, he talks about, this thoughts he gets.
Intrusive thoughts.
Especially at night, like when you can't sleep and your brain just replays every embarrassing moment, every worry you've ever had.
Oh, I think we've all been there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the brain, it's kind of funny, it just loves to focus on the negative.
Like Velcro for bad vibes.
Right. But the fascinating thing is how Bradley deals with it. He calls it holy ignorance.
Holy ignorance.
But it's not about, ignoring problems completely, but more like choosing to move your attention away from those things that are just dragging you down.
Okay, so let's break this down. This holy ignorance. Bradley's, secret weapon here? Humor.
Yeah, he talks about falling asleep watching cartoons to kind of drown out those voices.
Like, really?
It sounds simple, right?
It was too simple.
But there's actually a lot of psychology behind this. See, humor, it can do something called cognitive reappraisal. Basically, it helps you reframe how you're feeling.
So you're changing how you see the situation.
Exactly. And when you laugh, it's harder for your brain to stay stuck in that negative loop. Plus, distraction, if you do it strategically, it can really break those repetitive negative thought cycles.
It's like giving your brain something else to think about, something more positive.
Exactly. And it all ties into retraining your brain's focus. Because, let's be honest, we're wired for negativity. Our brains, they're like magnets for it.
Yeah.
But holy ignorance, it's about making a choice to rewire that, to change the default setting.
And Bradley, he makes this really important distinction, right, between holy and unholy ignorance.
Right.
So unholy ignorance is just pretending things aren't there.
Right, like sweeping it all under the rug.
Which never really works.
Never. Because, those issues, they just fester.
Yeah.
Holy ignorance, though, it's about acknowledging the problem,
Yeah.
but not getting caught up in its game. It's about taking control.
This is where Bradley's description really hit me. Those negative voices, he calls them expert debaters. He says if you give them attention, they just get stronger.
Absolutely. And there's actually a term for that in psychology. It's called rumination. You just keep replaying those negative thoughts over and over, and that gives them power.
It's like a broken record. But wait, is holy ignorance then kind of like cognitive diffusion?
You're catching on. That's exactly it. Cognitive diffusion is about separating yourself from your thoughts. Recognizing that your thoughts, they aren't necessarily facts.
They're just like things happening in your mind.
Exactly. And with holy ignorance, you're basically choosing to observe those thoughts, but not getting all tangled up in them.
So it's like, okay, I hear you thoughts, but I'm not going to let you run the show.
Exactly. And that brings us to, I think, one of the most powerful things Bradley says. What we focus on expands.
Yeah, he says that a lot. And it's so simple, but man, it really makes you think.
It's true, though. It's like we're constantly planting these seeds in our minds, and those seeds, well, they grow into our reality.
So the big question is, what are we planting?
Exactly. What are you choosing to focus on, to nurture? Is it fear, anxiety, self-doubt? Or are you choosing to water the seeds of hope, resilience, and joy?
It's a question we all need to ask ourselves, don't you think?
Absolutely. Because realizing that we have that power to choose where our energy goes, that's incredibly empowering.
Hearing you talk about all this is really making me rethink how I deal with my own, mental clutter. I'm such an overthinker, always analyzing everything. Maybe holy ignorance could help me break free from that.
It's definitely worth a try. The key is to find what works for you. It might be humor like Bradley or something completely different. The great thing about holy ignorance is it's not about becoming passive or ignoring everything. It's about being proactive, taking charge of your mental space.
And deciding which beasts to fight and which ones to just let wander off.
Exactly. And don't forget, it's not about pretending problems don't exist. It's about dealing with them on your terms from a place of strength. And that brings us back to what we focus on expands, but maybe from a different angle this time. This time, think about like giving those negative thoughts less room to grow. Because if you're always giving them attention, feeding them energy, well, they're going to thrive. But if you shift your focus somewhere else, those thoughts, they kind of start to fade away.
It's like you're cutting off their power supply. And that reminds me of things like meditation or even mindfulness. Aren't those about redirecting your attention too?
You're spot on. Meditation and mindfulness, they're basically holy ignorance in action. They're all about training your mind. Recognizing when you're spiraling and then choosing to step back. Not pretending the problem's gone, but choosing not to feed it.
So it's like building up a mental muscle, learning to observe your thoughts without judging them.
Exactly. And the more you do it, the stronger that muscle gets. Like anything, the more you practice, the better you become.
That makes a lot of sense. But I do want to be clear, holy ignorance isn't about being totally oblivious to problems in the world or ignoring important stuff. We're not talking about sticking our heads in the sand here.
Oh, definitely not. Holy ignorance is way more specific. It's about realizing that some thoughts, especially the negative ones, they can just drain you. They're not helpful. It's about choosing your battles, not letting every little thing consume you.
Almost like a mental detox, cleansing your mind from all the negativity that's out there.
That's a great way to put it. We're bombarded with information these days, and so much of it is negative. Holy ignorance can be a tool to filter out that noise, protect your mental space, conserve your energy.
Taking back control, choosing what you let in and what you focus on.
Exactly, and that's a powerful thing. You're not at the mercy of your thoughts. You get to decide which ones to cultivate.
Which brings us back to Bradley's point. What we focus on expands.
Right, but this time, think of it in terms of what you're choosing to nourish. If you're constantly feeding negativity, fear, well, guess what? They're going to grow bigger and stronger.
But if we shift our focus, even just a little, to something more positive,
you start to make space for those positive things to grow too. It might not happen right away, but with effort, you can change how your mind works.
So besides humor, what are some ways people can practice holy ignorance?
Well, we talked about meditation and mindfulness. Those are great. But there are so many others. Spending time in nature, listening to music, doing something creative, getting lost in a good book.
It's about finding what works for you, what helps you disconnect from those negative thoughts.
And it doesn't have to be complicated. Even taking a few deep breaths, going for a walk, that can make a difference.
Interrupting the cycle, breaking free.
Exactly. And the more you practice holy ignorance, the easier it gets. You'll start to notice those negative thoughts less often, and you'll be better equipped to handle them when they do show up.
This has been really eye-opening. So to sum it up, holy ignorance is about shifting your focus away from negativity. It's not about denial. It's about being intentional with your mental energy.
And knowing that you have the power to choose what influences your thoughts and your feelings.
Which leads us to the most important question. What does all of this mean for you, the listener? Maybe you're dealing with your own mental beasts right now. Those thoughts that just keep coming back. Or maybe it's just all the negativity in the world that's getting to you. Whatever it is, I think this idea of holy ignorance, there's something powerful there.
It's about taking back your power. Realizing you don't have to be controlled by your thoughts. You get to choose.
So what works for you? What are your holy ignorance tools? The things that help you get out of that negative headspace?
Could be something as simple as listening to your favorite music, or taking a walk outside, maybe getting lost in a book, or something more active like, painting, writing. Maybe you help other people.
Yeah, it's finding what works for you, right? What helps you shift away from all that darkness towards something better, something more positive.
And remember, holy ignorance isn't about pretending things are perfect. It's about engaging with the world, but on your terms, from a place of strength.
And if what we focus on expands, then the question is, what are you focusing on? What are you planting in your mind?
Are you feeding negativity and fear? Or are you choosing to cultivate something better? Hope, joy, strength, and hey, maybe even a little bit of humor.
That's a great question for us all to think about. And I think it's a great place to wrap up this deep dive.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep exploring and keep discovering the incredible power of your own mind.
When the night falls and the voices rise, I'm left alone with 1,000 lies. I've tried to repent, I've tried to pray, but those whispers, they just won't go away. But I've learned a trick, I've found a light. I won't let the darkness steal my night. With holy ignorance, I've found a way to drown the noise, to break the chains. What we focus on expands, so I'll turn my gaze, I'll take my stand. The enemy doesn't deserve my mind, I'll leave the shadows far behind. Holy ignorance, my armor strong, I'll fight with peace, I'll right the wrong. Used to lie awake, stuck in regret, hoping God hadn't given up on me yet. But I found joy in simple things like cartoons and laughter, they gave me wings. The demons talked, but I wouldn't hear. I shut them out and dried the tears. With holy ignorance, I rose above. In the quiet, I found God's love. When we focus on expands, so I'll turn my gaze, I'll take my stand. The enemy doesn't deserve my mind, I'll leave the shadows far behind. Holy ignorance, my armor strong, I'll fight with peace, I'll right the wrong. There's a line between the voices we face. Some are meant to bind, some are meant for grace. So I'll listen close, but I'll choose to ignore the ones that lead me to the devil's door. But we focus on expands, so I'll turn my gaze, I'll take my stand. The enemy doesn't deserve my mind, I'll leave the shadows far behind. Holy ignorance, my armor strong, I'll fight with peace, I'll right the wrong. With holy ignorance, I learn to see that God still here and fights for me. No more fear, no more doubt tonight. I'll rest in love, I'll sleep in light.